the low hum of city traffic drifting in through the cracked window. He leaned back on his hands, gazing at the ceiling. "I don't know what we are," he said suddenly. "But I like it, being like this." I turned toward him. He looked at me for a long moment. "But you should know I've never done anything like this before. I don't have the words for it yet." "That's okay," I said. "We don't need all the words yet." That night, he kissed me again, slower this time, more sure, then again, and again, until kissing became a kind of language we hadn't learned to speak with our voices. Parta 6. After that night, things changed. But not in the way I expected. There wasn't a sudden declaration. No dramatic conversations about what we were or where this was heading. But there was closeness. Real, physical, intentional closeness. Theo started sleeping in my bed more often than not. At first, it was under the excuse of bad dreams, or late nights. But eventually the excuses faded. It just became normal. He'd climb under the blanket. Our legs would find each other in the dark. And sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we wouldn't, but always there was warmth, and touches. Not rushed, not frantic, but slow, exploratory, charged. His fingers brushing my chest, my hand resting at his waist. Some nights there were kisses, lazy and soft. Other nights, it was enough just to feel him beside me, his breath steady against my neck. But for all the intimacy in private, we said nothing in public. Out in the world, on campus, at coffee shops, even just walking through our building, we slipped back into our role as roommates, maybe best friends. And that hurt, more than I wanted to admit. I told myself not to expect more. After all, he hadn't promised anything. He was figuring himself out, I reminded myself, and I didn't want to push him. But there were moments I caught him looking at me. Really looking. Like at the library. When our hands brushed and he didn't pull away. Or when someone asked if we were dating, and he stammered too hard, saying no. Still, the silence grew heavier. One afternoon, I came home early and found him lying on my bed, scrolling through his phone, shirtless, as usual. But this time, he didn't say hi. Just looked at me with that quiet intensity that had started to replace words. "I keep thinking about what we're doing," he said. I sat beside him. And I don't know how to stop wanting it. He turned his phone off and set it aside. "I think about you all the time," he added, voice low. "Even when I'm on a date with someone else. Even when I try not to." My heart dropped at the mention of someone else, but I kept my face still. "I've never been with a guy before," he said. "I didn't even know I could feel like this." I nodded, giving him space. "I don't want to lie about it anymore," he said finally. "Not to myself. Not to you." I felt the breath I'd been holding leave my lungs. "So what does that mean?" I asked gently. He looked at me, his voice barely above a whisper. "It means I want to figure this out. With you." Pi RT7 Theo, saying, "I want to figure this out with you," was the first clear thing he'd said about us. It was more than I expected, and more than I'd let myself hope for. After that night, we stopped pretending. Not fully. Not out in public. But in our shared space, we were no longer walking on eggshells. We kissed like it was natural. We held each other when the day had been long. And when he slipped into my bed at night, it wasn't silence that followed anymore. It was softness, curiosity, a growing sense of comfort that came with finally being seen. But outside our room, the world didn't pause. One Saturday afternoon, we ran into some friends from Theo's program while grabbing lunch. Just three guys, loud and casual. Cracking jokes, asking him about weekend plans. Theo stiffened a little when they asked if we were roommates or something else. "Oh, yeah, roommates," he said too quickly. "From the housing board." I smiled, keeping it casual, even though something in me twisted a bit. He glanced at me when they weren't looking, guilt flashing in his eyes. I didn't hold it against him, not yet. But that evening, while we were cleaning up dinner, I said quietly, "You don't have to hide me, Theo. But if you want to, I need to know that too." He looked up from the sink, lips pressed tight. "I'm not hiding you," he said. "I'm just not ready for them." "Okay," I nodded. "Then let's take it slow. But I need honesty, even if it's messy." He came around the counter, wiped his hands, and stood in front of me. "I'm scared," he admitted. Not of us. Just how everything might change once people know. Things will change, I said. But not all of it will be bad. He leaned in, forehead against mine. I just need time. You've got it, I whispered. The following week, we found a rhythm. He stopped calling me just his roommate around close friends. He wasn't ready to say more than that. But the shift was noticeable. There were more quiet touches in public. A hand on my back. His knee brushing mine and not pulling away. We weren't out. But we weren't pretending anymore either. Still, there were moments that stung. Like when someone at a party asked Theo if he was dating that girl from his engineering class, and he laughed and said, "Nah, not my type," but didn't say what was. Or when I'd hear him hesitating on my name when telling stories, unsure if "my friend" was enough. But we were building something fragile, something real. And that meant allowing space for the fear. His and mine. A party. The turning point came quietly. Not in a fight, not in a dramatic scene, but in the form of a party. One of Theo's classmates was throwing a birthday thing at an apartment near campus. Loud music, cheap beer, too many people in too small a space. I wasn't planning to go, but Theo asked me to come. "I want you there," he said. And that meant something. We arrived together, but we didn't arrive together. You know the difference. Walking in the door with a bit too much space between us. No shared look, no touch. He slipped into his usual easy charm, dapping up friends, laughing at dumb jokes, blending in like he always did. I stood near the kitchen, sipping a drink watching. At some point, I saw him talking to a girl. She was pretty, familiar. Maybe one of the ones who used to like his posts too often. She leaned in when she laughed, touched his arm. He didn't pull away. A familiar tightness coiled in my chest. I turned to leave the room, but just as I stepped away, I heard someone say, "Hey, isn't that your roommate?" Theo turned, saw me, and for the briefest moment, hesitated. Then he smiled. "Yeah, that's him." The girl looked me over and asked, "You two always roll together?" Theo chuckled. "Yeah, pretty much." And then, after a second that felt like eternity, he added, "He's someone important to me." He didn't say more. He didn't have to. That moment meant everything. Later that night, we sat on the apartment balcony, the music thumping faintly inside. The air was cooler now, still tinged with summer but flirting with fall. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. That was a big step. He leaned back in the plastic chair, exhaling. "Yeah." It scared the hell out of me. I could tell. "But I meant it," he said. "I'm tired of only being honest in private." I looked over at him, silhouetted in the moonlight. His hair messy from the night. Glasses tucked in the collar of his shirt. "I don't need you to come out to the world," I said. "Just don't pretend I'm no one when I'm standing right in front of you." He turned to me, eyes serious. "You're not no one. You've never been." We sat there for a while, quietly. Then he added, "I've been afraid that if I said it out loud, I'd lose something." "And now?" I asked. He looked at me, and this time, he didn't flinch. "No, I'm more afraid of losing you." Part 9. After that party, something shifted. Not loudly, not all at once, but undeniably. Theo stopped being careful in small ways. He didn't flinch when our hands brushed at the coffee shop. He leaned into me while we watched Netflix, even with the blinds open. He started leaving his things. A hoodie, his charger, his coffee mug. In my room as if it was ours. We hadn't labeled anything. We hadn't made some grand announcement. But in the quiet language we'd built. Glances, shared beds, small admissions. We were finally saying everything. One afternoon we went to a bookstore downtown. Theo loved the architecture section. Always pretending he was going to start sketching. When the time felt right. I watched him as he flipped through pages. The sunlight catching in his hair. His glasses sliding down his nose the way they always did. He looked up and caught me staring. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "You just look at home here." He smiled, soft and real. "I kinda feel that way. When I'm with you." I didn't respond. Just stepped closer, until our arms touched. And when he didn't move away, I took that moment as ours. But the world outside didn't always match our quiet. One evening, Someone from Theo's engineering cohort posted an old picture. A group shot from a spring trip. Theo was tagged. Someone in the comments joked. No sign of the mysterious roommate who stole Theo's weekends. A harmless tease, probably. Still, I saw the hesitation on Theo's face when he read it. "You okay?" I asked. He hesitated. "Yeah. It's just weird, seeing people notice. Is that bad?" "No," he said, quietly. "Just new." It wasn't about shame. Not anymore. It was about navigating the in-between. Not hiding, but not explaining either. Not defining, but not denying. Later that night, he slipped into my bed and wrapped his arm around me like it had always been there. "I want this," he said into the dark. "Even if I'm slow at showing it." I held onto that. Onto him. A few days later, as we walked back from campus, we passed a group of his friends. One of them gave him a playful nudge and asked, "So, Theo, you ever gonna introduce us to the guy you're always with?" Theo didn't flinch. He just turned to me and said, "This is the guy." It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was enough. Par 10 fall crept in slowly. The heat softened, leaves crisped at the edges, and with it came the weight of real life returning. Tighter schedules, projects ramping up, career applications, and those subtle but undeniable signs that something was ending or changing. Theo's nights in my bed didn't stop. If anything, they grew more consistent. By late October, we weren't just sleeping side by side. We were waking up like that too. Hair messy, morning breath, legs tangled. The quiet intimacy of not just desire, but comfort. One morning, he kissed me on the shoulder before getting out of bed. That meant more than anything he'd said aloud. But we both felt it. The calendar pushing forward. The inevitability of decisions. Next semester, I'd be traveling part-time for my thesis project. Theo was applying for internships in other cities. The bubble we'd lived in, made of cheap takeout and shared playlists and late-night glances, was beginning to thin. We didn't talk about it. Not until the night before his first interview trip. We were lying on my bed, the lights dim, a movie forgotten in the background. His suitcase sat half-zipped in the corner. He turned to me and said, "What happens when we're not living 5 feet apart?" I swallowed. "We find out if this is real, or if it was just convenience." His brow furrowed. "Do you think that's all it was?" "No," I said quickly. "But I think we've never had to try. It's just been." He nodded. "I want to try." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was weighty. Like standing at the edge of something new, hearts thudding, hands reaching but not quite touching. "I don't want this to fade," he said. "Even if we're not in the same place for a while." "Then it won't," I said. "We'll figure it out. Even if it's messy. Even if we don't have the words yet." He smiled, that soft, tired smile I'd come to know. "Still scared?" "So am I whispered. And then, he kissed me. The kind of kiss that doesn't ask for anything, but still promises everything. Weeks passed. We started texting more during the day, sending stupid memes. Photos of what we were eating. The occasional, "I miss you." That didn't feel awkward anymore. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. Sometimes we'd call each other just to sit in silence, working in separate cities, listening to each other breathe. There was a quiet assurance in that even apart, we were still us. And eventually, Theo sent me a text one night. "I told my mom about you. She said she had a feeling." "How did it feel?" I replied. "Good." He wrote. "Right, the future wasn't locked in. It still isn't. But what we had that summer, what we held onto through autumn, was real. And for once, I didn't need a label or a plan. I just needed him. And I had him. Even if only between the lines we were finally writing something worth keeping. THEND.